In the past week, I've been going through different study techniques and also looking through the study techniques that I've been using this entire time so that I could rate it for you guys so that you don't have to waste your time on which one's the best. Studying can feel overwhelming, but what if I told you that there are scientifically proven ways to make studying a lot easier for yourself? In this video, I'll be reviewing 15 study techniques or study methods, breaking down what they are, how they work, and whether they might be right for you. Some of these are classics, but some may absolutely surprise you and maybe something that you've never heard about before. But they do all have research backing them up, so let's go. The first one is the SQ3R technique. The SQ3R technique stands for survey, question, read, recite, and review. Instead of passively reading, what you want to do is to go through these 5 steps in order to get the information into your brain much faster, firstly, and also you can memorize it for a lot longer. These are techniques that are used by your favorite YouTubers, your favorite content creators on TikTok, etc. I use this all the time. Junya used this, so a lot of people have used this as well. The first thing you want to do is to start by surveying the text. You want to skim the headlines, images, and summaries. Then you ask yourself questions about what you're about to read. You don't ask yourself like,
why am I actually reading this?
You want to ask yourself questions as if you're trying to get kind of like questions out of it. You want to predict the questions that will come out from this information. Then you actively read while looking for answers, recite the key points in your own words, and finally review anything else that's left. This method, in my opinion, is the best when you want to understand the subject really deeply. And this is usually more for like university level, or if you want to do like biology, where there's a lot of application questions that usually goes about very deep understandings about the subject itself. But the downside of this technique is that it's very slow and tedious. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of getting used to. Over time, however, you will start to get better at it. I would say that if you're an overthinker, you would like this technique. Number 2 is spatial repetition, but specifically using your sleep time in order to do this and your shower time. So with spatial repetition, you really want to space out as much as possible. If you've ever crammed the night before the exam and it actually didn't work for you, it's because you're not applying spatial repetition. If you apply spatial repetition, it will allow you to keep it in your memory in the long term. Now, this method involves reviewing the material multiple times over days or weeks. For example, you study something today, review it again tomorrow, then next week, then 2 weeks later, spacing it out regularly. Now, if you don't have a lot of time, what you can do is to space it between your shower time and your sleep time. So if you're reviewing something, review it before you shower, go take a shower. After you get out of the shower, see if you remember it again, see if there's any gaps, review it all over again. Do the same thing throughout the day, before you eat, whatever, before you exercise, whatever it is. And the last one is before you sleep. Read it before you go to bed, go to sleep. In the morning when you wake up, see if you still remember it. Trust me, if you do it in just a day, you will be able to memorize it for a lot longer. Spacing out your study sessions strengthens the memory retention and reduces the need for last-minute cramming. It is one of the most effective study techniques out there, and it is backed by solid research that you can search up. The third one is the Leitner system. The Leitner system is basically a form of spatial repetition, but this is using boxes and your flashcards in order to rearrange it in a proper way. While cards that you get wrong will stay in the short-term review pile. This way, you will focus more on the weak points instead of wasting time on things that you already know. It is perfect for memorizing the facts, but it is not very good when you need to have a deep understanding of the material. Now, in my opinion, there is one big downside of the Leitner system. I don't know if everybody else feels the same about this, but I definitely do, which is that I don't find myself being consistent with using the Leitner system all throughout the week, because the idea is that you want to space it out as much as possible so that you have the same amount of flashcards at the start of the week and then the same amount at the end of the week as well. But the problem is being consistent about it, because there's just so many subjects to do. It's just not a lot of time for us to basically cover like thousands of flashcards if you're doing multiple subjects at once. So with this, I wouldn't say that the Leitner system is good for the 1 week plan. Maybe space it out to about 3 days and then repeat it for every 2 weeks. Of course, that also depends on how well you know the subject. If you know the subject well, you can space it out even more. If you're still starting out with this new subject or like learning new things, then I would try to space it out in a short term as well. Number 4 is the retrieval practice, which is the power of self-testing. So this is kind of like blurting in a way. You can call it that as well. But when you're actively recalling the information, it's actually a lot better than you just reading it. It's active. That's the word for it. Retrieval practice is all about forcing your brain to remember without looking at the notes itself. Now, one of the things that I do is actually using a Cornell method for this. So here's an example of the Cornell method that I use. In the part where it says key points, that's actually where I do my first memorizing, my first blurting. The big section is basically where I just write down all of the information that I want to memorize. The key points is where I do my first blurting, and then the summary at the bottom bottom is where I do my second blurting. In my first blurting, I'm allowed to look at the notes next to it and see if I missed anything. I can look at the textbooks, whatever it is. I can look at the material just to see that I got everything right and just to double check everything is fine. The summary side at the bottom, this is where I do it purely from memory. This takes a really long time. I was doing this a lot in my first year of university, and I also did this method in my A-levels, but I realized that it actually took way too much time that I end up wasting time not doing the practice questions instead. So if you have a lot of time, especially if you're studying during the summer, this is one of the techniques that you can use. If you want to be quick with what you're studying and you're trying to catch up with your school, I wouldn't use this technique. Now, other things that you can do in order to do retrieval practice is, of course, doing the simple ones like practice questions, quizzing yourself, simply writing down the information, like blurting it out on a whiteboard really quickly, like immediately, no need to do the Cornell method. That's also helpful. It won't put it into your memory for a very, very, very long time. But if you keep repeating it over and over again, of course it will as well. This, in my opinion, is one of the best ways to truly learn something, especially for exams, if you have a lot of time. Number 5 is the Zeigarnik effect. In this effect, it explains why we remember incomplete tasks better than the finished ones. If you stop studying in the middle of a session and do something unrelated, your brain will keep processing that information subconsciously. So this is why I would suggest that you would split up your study sessions into different subjects in a day. I would say to switch between a minimum of 2 subjects so that you can keep your brain from processing the information as you're learning a new one. And it's a whole loop every single time. This is also the idea behind the Pomodoro technique, where you are studying for 25 minutes or 50 minutes and then taking a break in between them. By studying, instead of studying for hours, you want to stop studying mid-topic according to the Pomodoro timer and take a break. It feels really unnatural. I completely get it. I feel the same way. But as you go along, you realize that this is actually so much more effective than learning the entire thing and then just forgetting afterwards. It's a very interesting psychological trick. It definitely works for me, but it might not work for you. So definitely give it a try and see how you feel about it. Give it at least 2 weeks to see what you feel and how it's changed your grades. Now, number 6 is the Pomodoro technique. I absolutely love the Pomodoro technique. This I would rate an 8 out of 10, to be honest. It's one of my favorite techniques. I use this all the time. Now, if you struggle with focus, Pomodoro technique will be good for you. If you really, really struggle with focus, then I would pair the Pomodoro technique alongside Study with Me's on YouTube. It involves studying for 25 minutes, 50 minutes, and then taking a break for a set period of time. For me, I do 25-5, which means I study for 25 minutes and then take a break for 5 minutes. And I usually do 2 hours of this, so it would be like 4 sessions worth. This method works because it prevents burnout while keeping your brain engaged. It's also really good for people who get distracted really easily by shortening the time that you're studying and then taking a break and then going back to it again. It allows you to basically restart your study process every single time and gets you into the groove all over again. Now, this doesn't work for students that take a while to get into the groove of studying, because obviously you're starting, stopping. So what I would suggest instead, if you are someone who struggles with getting into the groove, but then once you get into the groove you can do it for ages, I would suggest you try a longer period of time for the Pomodoro, or not doing the Pomodoro at all and instead just doing the Study with Me for like a full 4-hour session. The downside to the Pomodoro technique as well is that it doesn't work every single time. It depends on the subject for me, but you can do it with other things like Study with Me, like I said before. Also pairing it with reward systems or listening to classical music, listening to like deep study music. I have a playlist for this that you can see down below. It's my Spotify playlist, and that's the one that I use in order to study. And while it's not really good for deep work, it is really good for staying motivated. And honestly, sometimes that's just a lot better than not doing anything at all. Number 7 is the learning pyramid, and I would rate this a 7 out of 10. The learning pyramid suggests that different study methods lead to different retention rates. Passive learning, for example, like reading, listening, or just listening to your lecture, it only helps you to retain 5 to 10% of the actual information, which is not a lot, especially if you're trying to get good grades in the exam. 5 to 10% gets you nothing. But active learning, like discussing, participating in class, practicing, doing Feynman technique, teaching the material, all of this can boost your retention to up to 90%. It is a very useful guideline, but it's not a strict rule, and it changes by each person, of course. So I would try all of these out and see which one works the best for you. Number 8 is another one of my favorite, which is the Feynman technique. The Feynman technique is basically you teaching someone else. It doesn't have to be another person. It could be be an AI, for example. Sometimes I do that. At least recently, I've been doing that. You can also use like an inanimate object like your cup, your pillow, whatever it is. Just pretend like you're lecturing a class. This technique was named after a physicist, Richard Feynman. He believed that the best way to understand something is to explain it to somebody else. And honestly, I would agree with him. To use this method, you want to take a topic, explain it out loud as if you were teaching a child. You can use simpler information. You can break it down into simpler understanding pieces. You can use simpler lingo, for example, or break it down into smaller chunks that are easier to understand. After you do that, you want to even simplify it even further until it's super, super easy to understand. So what I used to do was actually, I used to explain like kidney dialysis to my sister just so that I could get the information into my brain. And obviously it would annoy her because when she's eating, she doesn't want to listen anything about kidney dialysis. So I kind of use it as a threat. But that's okay, because now she understands kidney dialysis, and guess what? She's a biochemist now. And guess what? She's doing cancer research now, so I don't know if that's related, but maybe it is. The idea is that if you can't simplify the information very well, then that means you don't understand the information very well. So go over it again, understand it even deeper, explain it again. Number 9 is priming your brain before you learn. This is the new technique that I've been using in university, and I use this a lot because before I start a new subject, I would try to do the questions first. I know it seems really backwards, but I've actually used this in my A-levels a little bit too. It helps me to kind of see like exactly what type of information they're looking for. I don't do the questions blindly. I actually have the notes next to me and the mark scheme next to me as well, so then I can like see the question, see the answer at the same time, and then try to understand it with the textbook itself. By doing this, it primes my brain to spot out exactly what information I need to get when I'm actually learning the subject itself. This will help your brain to absorb the information so much faster. And of course, it's a lot more accurate as compared to you just reading the textbook blindly and then not knowing exactly what you're trying to learn. It works well for some people, but others may find it really discouraging if you're starting out with the question first and then you have no idea what it is. It's really difficult to break out of that cycle, but if you can break out of it, this is a very powerful technique. Number 10 is mind mapping. If you're a visual learner, you would do very, very well with mind mapping. I love using mind maps. I use this a lot with all of my students, and I use this in order to basically connect a lot of the pieces together, especially with chemistry, physics, biology. A lot of the information actually ties together. It kind of makes me feel like a detective in a way, but it really is fun to do, and it definitely makes it easier for my brain to understand what's happening because it's very visual based, it's very summarized, very succinct, and my brain just like captures the image and I can read through it in my mind with my photographic memory. It's easier for you to recall the information with this technique, especially if it's a very complex subject. Number 11 is color coding your notes or color coding the information. So I don't know if you can see this very well. I'll put a picture of it up, but basically this one here has a lot of different colors that represents different things for me. So definitions are usually colored in green. Examples are usually in orange, and if it's like something important like a equation, if it's something important like an equation, I will usually put it in pink. By color coding according to what I want the color to be, I would immediately understand what it is I'm looking for, and I would immediately know where it is as well. My teacher used to always say that I'm coloring my textbooks or coloring my notes because literally my notes were just sprawled with 5 different colors. But that's just how I compartmentalize in my head. Obviously, you don't have to use a lot of colors. You can just stick to like 2 colors, but that's just how I did it. This is a helpful but minor way to boost your memory. Now, number 12 is of course studying with music. If you're listening to music, it really depends on the type of subject that you're studying, and also it depends on the type of music that you're listening to. For me, maths work really well with pop music. Chemistry works well with like very classical music, and then physics, I work well with like lo-fi music. So I do have a playlist, like I said before, which is my Spotify playlist for my deep focus music. It's the playlist that I use when I want to do like deep work, basically. I would say this depends on your personal preference, so I would try out different types of music and see which one sticks with you. Number 13 is probably a bit weird, like I've never really seen people talk about this a lot, but it's exercising before studying. And in the past week, I find this to be helpful because when I'm exercising before I study, I actually train my brain, my mental health, and my physical health as well in order to study. But most importantly, the reason why this works for me is purely just because when I'm at the gym struggling, I always say to myself, I would rather study than doing this. And it just makes me appreciate studying even more. I would literally honestly do more like 30 math questions or 30 past papers as compared to doing leg day. I honestly would do that. If you tell me if it's a choice between the two, I would do 30 past papers. And obviously, it's a great way to get rid of the sluggish feeling that you may have, and it's a great way to energize your mind before your study session. Number 14 is very similar to the spatial repetition that we said before, which is the sleep memorization hack. I've been trying this the past week. I would say it definitely helps. As I was saying before, sleep memorization definitely helped to retain the information better, but I did find that it kept coming into my dreams as compared to me actually just memorizing in daytime. But I suppose that helps. As long as it stays in my memory, anything is fine. I just keep dreaming about maths now. If you're cramming for an exam, instead of pulling an all-nighter, you can study before you go to bed and get a full night's rest, and then in the morning go over the material again and see if you still remember it. This actually helps you to retain the information better, but you don't have to like do it out of your pure memory, right? Like you don't have to recall it immediately with this technique. You could just reread it again, see if you spot out anything that's familiar to you, and that's it. And last but not least, another one of my favorites is to study in different environments. Now, obviously, you can change your environment at home. If you have a specific study room, you can make that into your space. I had that, but as my sister grew older, she also needed that space as well. So it was a shared space between us, and it just got really, really messy over time. So what I like doing was actually studying in cafes, studying outside, studying in libraries with my friends. It's really fun to do that, especially in university, because doing that makes me feel really productive, and I have this main character energy, main character idea that like when I'm studying in public, people will be watching me, and it just makes me so much more motivated. If you can't do that and you also don't have a lot of space, what you can do instead is to join like study rooms, or again, you study with me. It makes you feel like you're buddy doubling, and also it makes you feel like you're wherever that person is studying in. Usually I love watching like Cambridge, Oxford Library, those kind of ones. Creating the right environment, while it doesn't actually boost your memory itself, will make all the other techniques a lot more efficient and a lot more effective. So that was a breakdown of the 15 scientifically proven techniques, but here's the truth. There's no single best technique for every single subject. Every single subject requires different techniques. Some may be similar, like physics and chemistry, both can be used with Feynman technique, but I cannot use the same techniques that I use in chemistry for my math subjects. So I would try it out. I actually spent an entire month in order to try out every single study technique before when I was studying for my A-levels, and that's when I saw an improvement in my grades from an E to a C. If you struggle with memorization, Leitner system, Feynman technique will help you. If you struggle with motivation, with focus, Pomodoro will help you. Let me know in the comments which ones you've tried, and if there's any of the ones that you like and I haven't tried, let me know as well. I would definitely love to give it a go. But if you like this video, don't forget to give it a like, share it with your friends if they need it as well, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye!